Hey folks, and welcome to the newest rugby show on the block, covering all things rugby, not only in America, but around the world. It's The Point Taken. We've got JP, James, Hatto, Addison joining us.
Serious note though, we are going to come at you live, okay? So unedited, live. You can join in on social media.
The one and only Pat Clifton, the most informed and probably loudest voice in American rugby. Pat, that a fair assessment?
Yeah, sure, that sounds fair.
Whenever you're ready. Thanks to Ryan Ginty working hard behind the scenes for us. We are in the middle of the streaming wars right now. And that's something that they have to be very conscientious. Television, as we knew it growing up, probably never going to exist in the same way. And of course, myself, Dan Power, aka the Panther. And we are going to discuss all things rugby with more of a Major League Rugby theme to it. We're going to go deep. We're going to get dirty. We're going to be open. We're going to be a little bit brash at times, but we're going to have some fun doing it. What do you say, boys?
Well, you made a lot of promises there. I hope I can deliver on them.
I think you got the brash part taken care of for us.
This show sucks. Are we going to do a second one? I think we should scrap it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about the second one, folks. We're on the fifth one. We've almost made it to double figures, halfway there. Welcome to The Point Taken. Dan Powell with you alongside Pat Clifton and James Patterson in the studio. I am on the road. We have a big show coming up. It doesn't get any bigger than this. It's 1v1 this week, Austin versus Atlanta. So we bring in two of the absolute stars of both of those teams and stars of Major League Rugby, Mark O'Keefe from Austin and Will Leonard from Atlanta. They're going to join us in just a second. But firstly, Pat, how you doing, buddy? It's a little bit unusual. We're going a night early in this show, but you had a little practice tonight. How are the boys shaping up for the spring season?
It's great to be out. I have a scrum sled for the first time in my life. I don't even know what to do with it. I think we might have used it upside down or backwards today, but we'll figure it out eventually.
Just for record, I think Dan and I we're consultants, Dan, this season. Is that what we've told our wives for the Blues? Consultants? Advisors?
Yeah, executive
Technical.
Assistant to the assistant or something like that.
So when do we play each other again?
April 16th. Is that just to buy your time some Thursday piss-ups or what?
No, we're only doing it because we get to play you.
Pat, my wife watches the show. That is the reason, but now we can't say that because she'll know. Sorry, honey. I'm actually going to go shape the minds of America's youth, fall in love with rugby, all that jazz. But let's not waste some time. Let's get our guests in because I am beyond excited. These two guys, two of my absolute favorite players. They're OGs. It is the original love story in Major League Rugby. These two jumped on a ship, came over from Ireland all those years ago, landed in New York together, and the bromance was formed. But as is most love stories, a tragedy strikes. Separation. We were going to get to the bottom of what happened between these two. Look at this. Happier days in New York. Dark clouds on the horizon, though. And it was the cowboy, Mark O'Keefe, who went south to Atlanta. His good friend, Will Leonard, 12 months behind. Everyone said he's a touch slow at times, but 12 months behind, he lands in Atlanta. But O'Keefe, he's gone to Austin now. Boys, appreciate you joining the show. How are you feeling ahead of this weekend's game? It's a big one. Friends become foes. It's just you guys played each other last year, right? Did you guys run in Atlanta, New York?
Yeah, I remember playing Atlanta versus New York. Actually, probably two of my worst games I played last year. I think it definitely got the occasion definitely got the better of me, which is pretty shit. And staring down the barrel of looking at this big yoke running down at you it's an awful thing to be looking at. So. Yeah.
And Will, you think the trend continues this weekend? You've obviously got Cowboys number 2 in a row. Is it 3 in a row on Saturday?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that's the plan. We've last year at New York, we kind of knew his head was going to be a bit gone, so it was inevitable. Yeah.
I just want to start something by saying, are you lads members of the Kansas City Blues?
Yeah, that's correct, Dan, isn't it?
So you have employed Matt Workin to be your captain of your club?
No, I think he's the captain of our
fashion, yeah,
fashion, maybe some social media.
He is
self-appointed captain.
He is the brawn of the Blues, as they call it. Yeah, I mean, did you guys grace the catwalk with him in New York when he was strutting down? Someone told me that he turned down what did he turn down, like a Gucci or a Louis Vuitton shoot to play a game?
Gabbana.
Oh, sorry, Dolce and Gabbana to play for Rooney. I don't know if I would have.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Speaking of characters, in your time in New York, you guys got a couple of legendary ones. If there's ever an MLR book written, which hit me up if any publishers out there want to write that, there's got to be a chapter, at least a couple of pages on James Kennedy. And then there's a guy named Bruce McLean who, if you've spent any time in the grassroots rugby community, is a bit of a legendary character. You guys ran into both of those dudes in New York. You got to give me at least a James Kennedy or Bruce McLean story.
Will can do a James Kennedy one. I have a Bruce McLean. I played with Bruce there. Bruce was my coach there for the fall, so I'll do Bruce. Will can do James.
Not all at once, boys.
Okay. I'll do Bruce. But we actually played.
Go ahead with Bruce.
We played. We played live in the final of the autumn CRC or whatever the tournament was called. We got absolutely hockeyed. It was a shambles. Like, we lost by about 30 points. To be fair, we were just happy to be away. We got on the piss straight away, and I think sometime we got to the airport. I don't think many people were seeing straight at all, or could see straight, or could walk straight. And maybe Bruce was one of them as well. And I think a few of us may have missed the flight or may have been taken off the flight. And maybe Bruce was one of them as well, I think.
Is this pre-COVID, or was there a mask involved? Because I'm not seeing Bruce strapping up for Pan American anytime soon.
Yeah, he doesn't like the old masks. If he got COVID, he was brown bread, so he should definitely get a mask. But yeah.
All right. Well, what about a JE story? You've got to have a dozen of them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of James English stories. I think everyone involved in MLR rugby has a James Kennedy story, but my most memorable one was the first year when we got to the semi-final against San Diego. I think it was like 60 or 65 minutes gone in the game, and we decided to take Cathal Marsh off and put Harry Bennett in 10. And whatever, we went on to lose that game, last kick of the game, and James Kennedy was pretty well oiled up at that stage, and he came onto the pitch after the game. Bear in mind, James Kennedy is about 5'8" or whatever. He comes up to our 6'4", 6'5", 300-pound first coach, punches him in the stomach, squares up to him, asking him why he took Cathal Marsh off after the game in the middle of the pitch. Oh my god!
Crazy.
Oh, it was.
There you go. Executive of the year, I think, that year in Major League Rugby, James Kennedy. Wild times in the early days of Rugby New York, for sure.
Poor executives. Geez. I tell you, I had a great JE one. I did a game. You guys were both playing. It was in New York at the old baseball stadium. And I had my family with me, wife and 2 kids. And we leave to go back to the hotel and grab an Uber. And there's this other woman there with my wife. And I'm thinking, it's not even my birthday. Like, how good is this? Where am I going to hide the kids? And then turns out it was James's Tinder date, who was terrified and was trying to escape. And my wife, being the good Midwestern girl she is, says, you can run away with us. So we drove her back to the hotel in the Uber because she didn't want to hang out with James anymore. So look out, Tinder in New York. He's got some more cash now to play around with too. So troubling times. We're not here to talk about that. I want to get to the bottom of
After dark, baby.
The romance. Now, Will, young fella from Limerick, Mark, young man from Dublin, you come over to New York. How was that first interaction? Did you guys know each other or know of each other before you came to New York?
I think I knew of Will. Don't think we ever played against each other. I just knew him from. I think we were just before we left. I got in contact with someone I knew that was through you or something. I can't really remember, but I think we spoke like once or twice before we went over, but not really. We didn't really know each other that well at all.
And Will, obviously you had no clue who he was by the sounds of
it. No, not at all.
But that changes quickly. It's a quick love. Like, you guys become almost inseparable. I think we've got some photos of the bromance as it blossomed in New York in the early days. you two getting together with this. Like, what's the story here? A couple of Guinnesses, St. Patrick's Day, maybe? Or just Saturday?
Just a Thursday.
Yeah.
No. After the... that was actually after one of the hurling. I'm from in Limerick. They got to the they got to the All-Ireland final. So it was we were drinking since like I think it was in the morning. We were out to like 3 or 4 the night before, and then got up at like 9 o'clock in the morning. We're drinking all day then out in Long Beach in New York. So it was good crack.
And no wonder you lost to San Diego in the semis. Hey, here we go. Look at this. No shirts, and there's. I'm imagining Troy paid for the tickets and the outfits. I'm guessing, huh?
That was actually an unreal day.
Typical English people.
Just in case your grandparents are watching, it's lucky you were in dark glasses that day too. Otherwise, there might be some little giveaway on the pupils.
Yeah, maybe. It was actually the best part of it was actually going back. I was in what was that, Randall's Island? That was Randall's Island. Going back to the city that night, trying to get in. There was us three and Evan Minter. Yeah. We all wore the same outfit. Trying to get into fucking bars dressed like that. They're like, get the hell out of here! Like, what are you doing? And then the three of us there, because I think Minty went home. We roamed around the street dressed as that. The amount of people that came up to us, asking us for photos, thinking we were great. So we were like, we should wear these fucking things out every weekend. It was class.
Did you get a result that night, Cowboy?
Yeah, my pillow.
Good man. I mean, I would. Just look at that. Jeez, mate, you're ripped. Like a julienne salad there, shredded.
Let's talk a little rugby, shall we? I mean, we've got the best team in the East.
Yeah, hold on. Let's talk about this. Let's just step this forward a little bit further. So, obviously, with any new relationship, you go through the honeymoon period. Things are great, and then separation. Work calls, and all of a sudden you end up moving, and someone gets replaced. And I think that's probably the bigger comment. Look at that. Look at that new romance there. So. Not like you needed any more motivation this weekend. You're going to have to be chasing some hard shoulders. But let's talk about this. Let's air it out a little bit.
Jennifer Aniston of the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie thing here, Will?
No response from Mark.
I feel cheated on.
I'm just... yeah.
Look at the smile. Like, I don't see any... And look at that. Look straight there. He goes, hey, this is for Will. Did you get that one? Did he?
Yeah, are those birds meant for Instagram? Will?
Jesus.
I'm just shocked at the smile. Like, look at the smile of Will in the photo with Julian. And then I've just never seen him in a photo with you with the same smile.
Oh, he's getting rightly done here. I'm delighted.
It's funny because we actually, and look at that, not a smile at all. Look at how you are.
That's his home.
Look at that.
Look at that. Look at Mark. He doesn't even want to get near you. Look, arm underneath. He's trying to keep his distance. Trouble. And we actually did some digging in Mark's apartment, unbeknownst to him, he was at training today. And we've found some of your old photos. See if you can spot. There's one. That's from Workin's catalogue. Sent it to Dolce & Gabbana, and Wrangler Jeans got back and said, we'll take you.
Shocking.
But any of the doctored ones, we saw some doctored photos, and we just wanted to see if you can tell the difference in some of these photos that we pulled up. Well, what's that? Wasn't that you? And now that's Julian's head.
It's like Back to the Future. He's slowly fading into somebody else.
That looks really well done.
We'll send you a copy, Mark.
And then here's another one.
Man,
again.
There he is again.
Making memories.
Oh my gosh! That's what happens when you're close to
back there for him.
When's this podcast over?
Look, it's got no defense. He's so embarrassed about the situation.
This is a 4-hour-long podcast. Saddle up, boys.
You want to talk about rugby?
Yeah,
Mark.
Yeah, it could be a good idea.
All right.
Embarrass more over time.
All right. Let's start for both of you guys this year. You come into this, it's a 1v1. realistically, we could be looking at a championship preview. I know it's early on, but both sides are built to play that kind of rugby and get to the championship. Defense is a hallmark of both your sides. Will, I'm going to start with you. Atlanta, only the one loss so far this year, but you've really come out of what can only be described as one of the off seasons, from hell for a franchise. Your owner unfortunately passes away. Your head coach steps down on the eve of the season. Somehow, some way, you guys have come out of the gate and are playing brilliant rugby. What do you put that down to?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, you couldn't have actually wrote a worse start to the season. Like, as you said, the owner, I didn't get to have the privilege of meeting him, but just from hearing what others were saying, what he did and what he did for the club was great. And then obviously Scott was another big kind of roadblock, and then Missile then as well. Jeremy Misalagu, another player, incident related to him. And yeah, it was all kind of like, it was all, I suppose, set up for us to fail. But Scott, as Mark can kind of tell you, has put such a good structure in place here that like it doesn't require his presence here. He's kind of had good leadership here. There's good senior players in the squad that have kind of stepped up and taken on that responsibility off the field and obviously on the field as well. So yeah, it's been kind of seamless for me fitting in. The lads have been great and a good setup here, and hopefully we can continue it on, I suppose.
And Mark, for you, you go to Atlanta last year. I'll say for one, I was really shocked with how they managed you down the stretch there in terms of your playing time. I thought that was a real wasted opportunity from Atlanta to have a quality player on the field, but we won't dive into that one. But, how's the fresh start been in Austin? How have you fit in with the squad? Sam Harris, the existing guys, and how do you put down this 5-0 start for the AGs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty surreal start, to be honest. As soon as I came here, it was just, I think everyone's been so friendly that like I've just been kind of taken care of. It's really close-knit family, like in terms of everyone lives together, everyone has their girlfriends or wives or something there, and then everyone does everything together, which I kind of lacked sometimes, like years before. Like every single morning I wake up, I'd have a text message say, do you want to go get a coffee or something, even before I knew these lads. And then obviously the whole San Diego, 2 weeks away in San Diego really, really helped our team. I think you really get to know people and you really know how they operate on and off the field. And I think that benefits you a lot once you live with them. And like you train with them 24/7. And obviously when you do a military camp from fucking hell, that's when you really know when people are down in the dump, and then you really have to pick them back up. Like I would say, honestly, I think there's a lot of heat about us doing that military camp, and I think some people are saying it's stupid. Personally, it was one of the worst days of my life, but I really think that it was it's going to be beneficial just because I've never been in a darker place in my life that day. So it's only up from here.
I bet you there's a couple of Sunday mornings.
I was going to say the same thing.
Well, maybe Will's see me on a few Sunday mornings where I've been in dark places. Oh man, it was the worst feeling of the world. Like,
I think that's interesting. People look at resources and talk about, the AGs and the Guiltinis, and they assume salary cap is the biggest way that resources come into play. But just a preseason camp, not that many people can take 2 weeks away and go somewhere crazy and hole up as a team and do the shared sacrifice thing. I'm also curious, either of you take this or both of you, we hear a lot about the logistical issues in New York. And I do want to hear about, your thoughts on all the different stadiums that New York has had to play in. But how much does the logistical of everybody, some people have to drive 2.5 hours to practice in New York. Some people have to drive 45 minutes. Some people have to take a train. Some people it costs $50 to get to practice. It's a unique city. How much does that play into, the team being able to get together and do some of those things on the edge that are outside of training that matter?
You got into Will. He was there last year, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible. I mean, the first year that we got there, we we were living in them. We were commuting to Queens. Queens at like an hour and 30 minutes to gym. We go back to Harlem, which was obviously another hour and 30 minute commute, and then we commute to Randall's Island, which could be another hour again on top of that. And sometimes we did a reviews in Xavier High School, which would have been another hour commute. So yeah, I mean, the logistics in New York it's just one. It's the complete outlier in terms of MLR clubs, and it's one of the best cities in the world. And Mark can say the same, and anyone who's played there can say it's the same. It's just impossible and extremely difficult to find resources and the right facilities for a professional environment. But it seems like they're making great strides there. They've kind of found a home in Hoboken now, which is a big thing. It's just to find where they can grow their fan base, and then hopefully find their own facility as well.
This question's for Mark. So, starting out 5-0, you hear every cliche in the book in terms of how you approach every week. Play every game as his own and all of those things. But what is the things that you guys are doing to prepare for this? Because at the end of the day, Major League Rugby over the previous years, teams have strengthened as they've come into competition. Those who've had a better preseason have come out in the field and done well. And we've already seen some instances this year, like home teams are 14 and 15 so far. So how are you approaching each week and trying to keep some of this momentum?
I think it's actually quite funny. Will would say they had it in Atlanta last year as well, where they have I think they did. It was like a word of the week. But I think now we've kind of agreed in Austin that every week the word is going to be next level, because every week we're planning on winning, which means we just have a target on our back at the moment. So, and we're going to be playing better teams every single week. I don't think we're going to have an easy game for the rest of the year. Like going down to Atlanta, then coming back, playing a Free Jacks team who are on fire. And then we have a week off. So we're 7 games before a week off. We've lost a few bodies. We're battered and bruised. So for this week, it's again the same shit, next level, because we have to get to the next level. Yeah, we played a LA Giltini's team who are the champions, and we played well in the second half, but we weren't ourselves in the first half, and we know we're going to have to play 80 minutes against a very good Atlanta team. So
there we go. All right, boys. We'll let you go. Before you go, this weekend, we'll start with you, Will. 3 players from Austin that you need to contain for Atlanta to win this weekend.
I'd be lying if I didn't have my eyes set on Mark. I think he's going to be a target of mine. Julian Dominguez, obviously. Dominguez is obviously another big on-form player. And really, they're of MLR, where they've all the firepower and whatnot to win it. So yeah, it's theirs to lose, really, isn't it?
Yeah, look at that, just antagonising you with those photos as you're talking as well. Beefy, Big Mark, what do you think? Same question, Atlanta.
3 players, 100%. Big Will at 12. Well, I presume he's playing 12, and then Momsen and my old roommate, Marco van Rensburg. I would say the 3 key players for Atlanta. And maybe T if he can score a try this week and not knock it over the line. Go on, mate.
Yeah, geez, I hope you 2 behave the rest of the week and don't get dropped.
He did it against Houston last year as well. Fucking hell.
Is that why you left?
No, I love GTs and gent. I'd hold that against him. He'd do it to me. He'd hold it against me if I did that as well.
Yeah, but you haven't dropped it over the line. So what's he going to hold against you?
Yeah, fair. That's true.
All right, final words. You got anything to say to each other? I know, Will, you're pretty pissed right now, with this betrayal. Any final words for Mark before the weekend?
Bulkhead Saloon after?
He's frozen. He's got nothing.
Yeah, no, I don't do much talking. Mark, every time we play each other, every time we play each other, Mark loves talking shit, but I'm more just the quiet, get my work done. But he'll always be chirping me.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes this weekend.
All right, Marky, what are you going to say? What are you going to say?
Just, yeah.
Run it straight, you cat. How about that?
Run it straight. Yeah, but he'd be running straight at Bryce. He'd be okay. Don't run to your right. To your left. It'll be grand.
All right. Hey, appreciate you both jumping on late on a Tuesday. So rest up. It's going to be a great game. I'm excited to watch it, and I hope you both have a great game. And you can share a beer afterwards and invite Julian on. Maybe a menage a trois is not the worst thing. You will and Julian. So be a generous lover, Mark, please.
I will do. Go on.
See you, lads.
Cheers,
Thanks,
lads.
boys.
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
you coming on.
Guys.
Thank you.
This is going to be a great game this weekend, boys. What are you thinking?
I think it's going to be fantastic. I don't know that anybody can beat the Gilgronis, but if anybody can, it's the defense of rugby ATL. I'm actually going to, we talk about matchups a lot. I'm actually going to watch this one. I want to see Will Leonard run into Julian and O'Keefe and see some of the collisions.
There's going to be a lot of anger in that one, isn't there? A lot of anger. I mean, look at these guys. 5 games so far. And look at that. O'Keefe, we talked about him last year. He's such a dangerous runner, and just to see him not feature down the stretch, it was a shame. I think they could have really benefited from him. And obviously, Leonard, they're very similar in terms of the physicality. It's going to be a great matchup. But look at this side, and you look at last weekend's game, and you compare it against this weekend's game. So last weekend, was it 15 of the players were Super Rugby starters at some stage of their career out of the 30 on the field? That's a pretty interesting statistic. And I got it right this week too. Statistic. There you go. and you're coming into quite a different matchup this week. The more, it's the same bulk of that squads together. ATL plays very different. It was kind of anticlimactic last weekend how that game went with the Gil Titties. I think this is probably going to be a little bit more of a challenge, especially if the Gil Gronies finish like they did last week.
Could be a real defensive tussle, right? If these guys revert back to kind of what they did in their test match ways and kind of what their original DNA is. But I'd like to see them open it up because the AGs have been scoring a ton of points this season, and so have ATL. And I'd much rather see a shootout, but I think we may be in danger of an SEC scoreline.
Yeah, well, it's all to play for on Saturday. Hey, boys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to preview the rowdiness from the weekend, plus old man comebacks. Will it become a theme in Major League Rugby? And Pat's monologue coming up as well. Don't go away. All that and more coming up after the break. All right, welcome back. It's what a great start to the show. 2 fantastic days. I'm going to say they're the best guests we've had on this show thus far, 5 episodes.
Without
Mark O'Keefe. I want to be the creepy 4th wheel in some of those photos, just sneaking in there, just hang out with the cowboy. But let's go into the what should we do? Let's do the monologue, Pat. Let's jump in the monologue because I know you're really passionate about what you're going to talk about tonight. So let's tee that up and jump into that right now.
Always passionate to talk a little bit of rugby, usually when your 39-year-old star player is sitting out for an extended period of time, as is the case for the defending champion Los Angeles Gil Titties, whose all-world fly half Matt Giteau has yet to boot up this season, it usually makes way for a younger star. But coming out of retirement to start at standoff for LA last weekend was none other than 42-year-old Oreni Ai. What does this say about Major League Rugby? That's the question I have for you guys, James and Dan. Is it that there aren't enough good? Is it not a good enough fly half talent in Major League Rugby? That we have some salary cap allocations that could be done better? What does it say about Major League Rugby that a 42-year-old who hasn't played in 6 years, mind you, steps in and goes straight onto the starting pitch?
Let's just preface this a little bit. It wasn't like this was planned that he was going to play it all this season.
Sure.
So you start out a season and you have a roster. You have your depth chart. So you've got Giteau, you've got Carty, then you've got Burton there. And obviously Cardi was a pec injury early in the season, so they lost him. So that was a big loss. So maybe that was the sign that they should go after someone at that stage. But we all know at that stage of the season, it's very difficult to find. Where are you going to find that player, Pat? I know that they could have probably picked up the phone to you and you would have found someone in like Sioux Falls. Is that in Iowa? Sioux Falls? Or
that's a great question. I don't even know the answer to that. That's
South Dakota.
South Dakota.
There's a Sioux City. There's a Sioux Falls. It's okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Sodak.
He did maybe he couldn't have done that in another position. In fact, you couldn't have done it in another position. But you've got an international level player, and there's jokes going around about like, what does this say about Major League Rugby? And it's like the NHL with the Zamboni driver becoming the goalkeeper. That's not the case. This is a class player. You've seen him at trainings. He runs a lot of the opposition at them at trainings as well. So he's still good. And you saw the way he managed that game. He was as good as any other 10 that weekend in the league. So I think, I think there's two questions. Yeah, it wasn't like a mockery putting this guy in. He could still compete. And he could probably still compete and play elsewhere. It's a question of like, can you find talent if how deep is your depth chart? And can you go more than 4 deep in USA Rugby? Can you? I don't know, Dan. Do you think you can go more than 4 deep in a position?
Mate, I don't think there's too many tier 1 nations that would have an able-bodied replacement if they lost their first 3 10s in terms of being able to perform at that level the way he did on Saturday night. I get what Pat's saying. The big question was, how the heck did he get a jersey with his name on it that was stuck on if he got hurt in the warm-up? So, this may have been something that he's been spending a couple of weeks to get ready for as a break glass in case of emergency situation. But that class is permanent. Why did Tom Brady play until he's 44 and win a Super Bowl a year before he retired? How many good quarterbacks are out there, Pat? Why didn't they take one?
Yeah, sure, but
permanent.
Yeah, but Tom Brady didn't come off of the couch after 6 years of not playing any meaningful competitive rugby or 5 years of not playing any meaningful competitive rugby, which is what happened here. They pulled a coach out of the stands and put some shoulder pads on him. So when they pulled Bill Belichick out of the stands and have him play quarterback, then we'd have a 1-to-1. But look, I'm not trying to crap on Rennie IE at all. What I'm saying is you have the Guiltinis. And I don't know if the rumor is true that they've dropped an entire bag of $500,000 on Matt Gitto's head, the entire salary cap. But let's just assume that he's paid above the average of like whatever 500,000 divided 35 is. Let's say he's
18,750.
That's pretty impressive. Let's say he's one of your top end fly halves, right? So your backup is now you have to go 2 levels. You have Luke Carty go.
Yeah, okay, your guy international level fly half, yeah,
he's fantastic.
And Burton, who's had plenty of first class experience in it.
Sure.
So, but you need someone behind him.
Yeah. Well, you need some. How about your first guy shows up that you're paying a bag to?
I mean, he's here. He got injured. He's got a calf?
Yeah, calf injury.
Calf injury?
Who Gitzo does. So you're 3 deep, and you have to get to Rennie IE. All I'm saying is if you reallocate, so look at DC. What I was seeing on social media was that this is an indictment on the depth of fly half in America, and I took issue with that. Because the reality is there are really good rugby players all around America. Like Mungo Mason was playing Chicago Lions rugby. Paul Mullen was playing in Galveston, Texas. That doesn't mean that just because someone's not playing in Major League Rugby that they can't play at the Major League Rugby level. I got a guy playing for my Division II club team who played in the Ospreys, who's 31. He was in the Ospreys Academy. There are guys that can play rugby sprinkled out the United States. Harry Bennett's in Los Angeles, and if Major League Rugby played enough money, he might be able to play fly half instead of having to coach for what he's doing.
I mean, valid point. I really do agree with that, and I agree that, where are the 10s? Where are the domestic 10s that we see coming through, and what opportunities are they getting? I mean, can you go through the league now and pick out 5 that are in development and getting an opportunity? The issue you have, and it's kind of like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because 10 is your pivot. Your entire game plan, it's all goes around the fact that you can execute with a pivot. And in that situation in the weekend, you're better taking someone who knows the system and putting them in there rather than trying to shoo someone in. Like, okay, the Guiltinis did it almost better than anyone last year bringing players in. Do you remember before they played the San Diego Legion, they lost 13 players before, and they brought up club rugby players that had never played professional rugby. Adam Channel, where's he kicked on to? It provides opportunities for players to do that, but I just don't think you turn the keys to your whole offensive system over to a player that doesn't understand it.
Now, it's not 1-to-1, but we're talking about the same topic here. Mike DeBulis, right? Mike DeBulis only got starts at 10 because their 10 didn't show up in time because of visa issues. Why is Michael Baska? What separates Michael Baska from a million other fly halves or guys who wanted to be a scrum half as American-made scrum halves is opportunity. It's not that Michael Baska is, and I remember watching that kid in high school. Like, he is gifted and talented and perseverant and all these different things, but like at the end of the day, he got enough scrum half minutes in Major League Rugby for somebody to say, okay, that guy's got some scrum half, and I could put him on another list. And at the end, if Mike DeBulis or insert other name of a guy who has an opportunity to be a good American 10 never get the opportunity to play when the bullets are flying, then it's going to be really hard to create one. And that's not what happened with last weekend at the Guiltinis. I'm just saying, when you do have it go down, you'd like to see not the 42-year-old come off the bench. I get that there's one-off exceptions, but I just like to see some American guys or even up-and-coming guys, Canadian guys. I'd like to see some opportunities for other guys get filled by someone other than a 42-year-old coach who's going to go back to the whistle as soon as he can.
Pat, serious question here. There are very few, if any, foreign players playing high school rugby. There may be a couple. I think JP may have actually been one who did that in Colorado. Where do those 10s go? Like, there's someone on each side of that ball playing 10 at high school. Where do they go?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot that happens in American rugby that I could drone on about, but the matriculation rate from high school to college isn't great, and from college to club isn't great. But the guys that do get through sometimes become pretty good rugby players. DeBulis, I'm sure, has played 10 his entire career. Nick Boyer has been playing scrum half since he was in high school. Often a guy with Nick Boyer's athletic makeup will have to play some other position because it gives his team the best chance to win if he's breaking 7 tackles, and if he plays scrum half. Here's one example. Okay. Garrett Prince. I've dropped his name on a few shows or podcasts. This kid played fly half for 1 semester, then played junior college football, and will be drafted this spring after scoring 10 touchdowns for UAB as a tight end. That was a fly half who goes on to play another sport. That guy, if COVID doesn't happen, he never ends up getting drafted because that extra year and a half of eligibility that COVID gave him has been the difference. He probably returns to rugby, and who knows what happens to him. So, like, I've made that point before. American high school rugby's best players do not play college rugby. They play other sports, or they don't play college rugby at all, on average. And those are the guys we have to get back and find a place for them and then create an opportunity for them. But if you never give an American kid, like Kieran Farmer in Houston, he was like signed early on, like has been in the SaberCats system, would have going on year 5 now. Where's his opportunity? Maybe he wasn't good enough. Maybe he was. What I do like seeing about Owen Sheehy in DC is he's getting to play. So if you're going to lose with guys that have an opportunity and some upside and could develop.
That's a good point. But that's professional sports, right? Like the Kieran Farmer story, he was in a franchise that couldn't win. So,
sure,
for you and I, just put him in. But for the coaching staff and, the front office, they're like, we have to save our own jobs here. We've got to, put the best team on the field to try to start winning. So that's probably why I think Kieran
they didn't do a very good job of it. I'll share an anecdote. I was talking to JT Onyet, and I don't even know if he'd want me to share this, but I'll share it anyways. He's talking to Paul Healy last year after Paul Healy knows he's being let go and says, try this in the line out because if nothing else, it'll be entertaining, and he refused to try it. So it wasn't like they were worried about wins and losses down week 10, 12, 14 and couldn't have, afforded a chance to blood a guy. They do it in the NFL all the time.
Are they better mentors in the NFL? Do you think positionally they're better mentors? Because you see it all the time. You see they draft the young quarterback and he's underneath the old stalwart salty there, dog. And he does his time, and then next minute he's in there. Do you think that there's maybe, I don't know, does that exist?
I think in New York it's existing. Like, is there a better mentor for Connor than Andy Ellis?
Good point.
I'm struggling is it Connor Buckley, the young Iona scrum half? I mean, that's a perfect scenario. But to your point, I don't think it's necessarily the older players that American rugby is missing. It's a coaching. And the dynamics that happens here is that the best player identifiers are at the grassroots, because when Mike Tolkien was coaching Xavier high school kids, he would take a 14-year-old pimply kid who's never passed a rugby ball, and that would end up being Mike Petrie, or it'd end up being somebody else. Mm-hmm. He had to take a kid with no rugby acumen and then watch him through that process. Most Mike Tolkiens don't then learn how to coach a 1-3-3-1 or the finer points of the scrum, or then get to the top level of instruction. So what you have is the best instructors and coaches in America usually have the least amount of courage and ability to talent ID and select, and those with the highest talent ID and select have the least amount of coaching acumen. So that's definitely a dynamic that has to be overcome.
Point taken.
I
mean, honestly, I think that it's a great open discussion. But just to finish on this, Dan, since we're talking about old men comebacks here, let's have a little bit of fun with this. A team can call you. You can choose whatever team is going to call you on Monday. Where are you playing? What position are you playing next weekend? And what game?
How many calls away were the Guillotines from having to pick up the phone and call you two?
Didn't they? I mean, Dan's had calls in the past. We know that for sure.
MLR calls?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He's had calls before. So I think we might have lost him. Or he's thinking really, really heavily. I think his AirPods died, but
I like to think that he's thinking, how about you, James? Who's if there's one MLR team that you could call up? Probably, I mean, I would think maybe you don't want to play against Julian Dominguez, so you want to play with the AGs.
I just want to be part of that group of friends. I'm going to the Gilgronis. So.
You would fit in perfectly with the shirtless photo shoots of the AGs.
There's no such thing as a shirt with me.
There you go. You're playing right there. March 12th at 3 p.m. for Austin versus Atlanta.
So off again. So who we got? We're going to make a prediction early in this game. Who you got in this game?
I'm going to go with the AGs, man. I can't bet against them. I know that Atlanta's tough at home, but I'm going to go with the AGs. They just got the best firepower, and it seems to be, man for man. I just don't know how I can pick against them.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm AGs as well. What about you, DP?
Is he still frozen?
He's still thinking about it. And he's still thinking about it. And he's still thinking about where he wants to play. And he's lost. It looks like he's lost a little bit of sound.
Yeah, fair enough. He's stuck in the bathroom there at the Courtyard Marriott.
Let's keep moving. And we'll talk about something while he can't defend himself that he used to do a lot of was the flop. And I think there's a pretty good example in the weekend of how a flop gets played out.
No, you don't. A little extracurricular activity between Larson and Ben Bonasso. Now Tucker comes in and
okay, we've had our fun.
To Iloma. Oh, and there's a punch, and this could be a red card. This could be a big moment in this match, Mike Petrie.
Andy! Oh, what about that? Send him off! Send the get off! Get him off the field! That was diabolical! Get him off the field! That's just typical of what it is! Get him walking! They don't like it! Walking, Campbell, if you've got any bottle! You've got the reward.
But no card, and I think that's the right call from referee Scott Green.
Okay.
I do think that's the right call.
After saying red card straight away, huh? Red card straight away. Oh, that was...
Where did McCarthy find that energy halfway through that? Get him off the field! Some of the best rugby commentary in history, that guy. Love it. I love it. How good was that? Sorry, boy, I had a little audio issue, but I'm back now.
The flop. The art of the flop has found its way into Major League Rugby.
I'm just going to get angry. If you want to see me get indignant and angry, this is how flopping in rugby is just so sacrilegious. It's outrageous. And the fact that it was a Canadian.
Yeah. From New Zealand too. James, explain yourself. Explain your country to the rest of the rugby world. You floppers. You're a bunch of floppers.
I used to get called flopping a lot, but I think that was actually me trying to tackle. So it wasn't exactly, but we like our theatrics and we're going to play it up, and it got played up then. So, I mean, as you can see here again, I mean, the old jersey punch, surprising. Maybe there's a little extra power in that right arm. There it is.
Just how embarrassing is that, right? Like, I mean, that gets replayed throughout the week, I would imagine. I'm freshman high school team. I missed a block once and I just landed. I ended up looking like I just dove on the ground and nothing happened. They replayed that 36 times at the next practice. This has to happen at the next Free Jacks film session.
At least he grabbed his face. It was another sport. He grabbed his shin or something else.
Yeah.
You got
no room for an MLR. None whatsoever. I read it. I would have given a double red in this scenario. That's what I would have done.
No, play on. Let them play, Pat. Let the boys play. Got to play.
All right, let's turn it into hockey then.
We'll take our last break. When we come back, we're going to preview all the action that's coming up this weekend. Point taken continues after this.
James, and here come the Giltinis. Oh, wow. Nifty play there. Look at the passing. The offloads.
Boys, we're done. Tensions are rising, obviously. We had an incident down there, and now we've had this. We got 50 minutes to go here. We need to settle it down.
15 regulation into effect. So he's penalty against 15 white, and he's a yellow card because it's fourth.
It's clear to be tackled.
It's too much now. You cross the line.
This is our home, defending our home. From this point on, that's what we do. Let's go, guys.
Switch move to Van der Merwe on the outside. He's got it! Van der Merwe has ripped them off like Banksy. From Jake.
All right, welcome back. We have a big one. Round 6, week 6, coming up for Major League Rugby this weekend. We'll kick things off with the disciplinary. Did I get that right? Disciplinary. That's good. Who's out? Our buddy, too hot to handle. One more week. Harry Labuskakny. He'll be back next week. So the demographic of 21 to 29-year-old females watching Major League Rugby. 1 week to wait, ladies, and then he's back. Hetty is back. Get on his Instagram, though. Talking about shredded players. My goodness. To be a droplet of sweat running down those abs. Count me in on that one. Jamison Farnana Schultz still out. He's serving a 5-week suspension. And Dougie Fife, I think he comes back this week. I think he's done his 3. If memory serves me correctly. So, all right, those are the current suspensions through Major League Rugby. All right, let's go. Saturday, Austin, Atlanta. We've had both the boys on already. We've talked about this game. Let's just do our predictions for this one. I'm going to start with you, JP. What are you thinking?
Austin for me.
Pat?
Austin for me, too. We already talked about it a little bit. They're just better, so I'm going to pick them to win the game.
Yeah, Austin for me as well. Leonard and Dominguez to come to blows. There'll be some tears shed as well. Don't worry about that. Scorn lovers are the best lovers when it comes to rugby. All right, Toronto at New England. It's the first home game for New England in Quincy, so interested to see. They said that the lines would be gone. We have just rugby lines. I don't know, between Union Point and that game at Quincy last year, my eyes were cross-eyed at the end of it trying to keep track of what lines were rugby and what weren't. So they're going to go St. Patrick's Day at home. Doesn't get any bigger than that, right? Boston, St. Patrick's Day. Who wins this one? Pat?
Free Jacks. They got the best player in the league, arguably, at the moment. In Bodine Waka, the forwards are moving pretty well, except for Josh Larson in the middle of a melee. And, I like New England in this one.
You know, I've been impressed with the Arrows so far, but again, New England, they've really surprised me. Walker just continues to play. At the beginning, I was like, he's just standing out in a couple of games, but he's generally, or he is a cut above competition right now.
Yeah, he's been a good player since he's arrived at the Free Jacks, but it's just been special this year. I don't know what he did in the off season or what's going on, whether, maybe the reins were loosened for him a little bit, but he's by far, I agree with you, Pat. He's MVP, crowning MVP. We'll start the chant in Quincy this weekend. I'll go New England as well, but this is a good test for them. Toronto coming off a bye will be fresh. Late game, we have 2 late games Saturday night. Seattle at Houston. This is a really interesting matchup for me, boys. JP, what do you think of this one?
We could be in a situation like we were last year where Houston got off. It was a little bit shorter last year. They only got off to a quick start at the beginning, and we were all raving about the change in Houston and where Houston's heading. If Houston doesn't win this game, they enter back into that fold again. They'll be 2-4 at that stage. And, we're coming up to that point of the season once you start slipping a few more away. And I think on the other side, if you look at Seattle, I still like what they're doing. I'm going to back Seattle.
I think if these guys meet in Oklahoma City, I'm probably going to give it to Seattle, but I'll take Houston at home. I think that it does matter. And Houston's running out of home games. These warm weather teams usually front load their schedule with home games, and the SaberCats have to start collecting some more wins. I like them to even it here, and it is an early West decider, but I like Houston to claw back into the playoff race and stay a little competitive here in the middle stretch of the season.
Yeah, I think the loser is, I agree with both. I think the loser's on the outside looking in on the Western run here, just with how things are shaping up. And you just imagine that LA are going to find their rhythm eventually. So with that kind of lurking behind them as well, whoever loses this game is going to be in a really tough spot. I'll go for Seattle on the road to get the upset over Houston. Just think Seattle's strong, where Houston's strong, but then stronger in the backs. I like that back line. In Seattle, so they'll get it done. New Orleans at Dallas, another must-win game here for Nola, who started quite slow but got a great road win against Seattle on the weekend. Pat, kick us off here, mate.
Maybe must-win for Dallas, the most winnable game of the season they'll potentially have, except for when they go play their winless counterpart from the East. So, this is. I think the Dallas Jackals have to start looking at that. We talked about them as winless coming into the season. They had a few competitive games, and it's gotten less and less competitive since then. And if I'm the Jackals, you're going to run out of weekends to do it, and you're going to run out of teams, that aren't quite as good as the rest. And if I'm Dallas, this is one circled at home. I've got a team that I can beat at home, and let's see if they can get another big crowd and reward it there in Dallas.
I think you're always stronger after you get completely torn apart, because that's the week you come back and everybody lifts a little bit more and you try and fix some of the things. You can get into trouble when you try and fix too much. But in this situation, I think if you look at Nola and the opportunity they have here to put two good wins together and the momentum that will give them for the rest of the season, I think there's too many pieces in play there that understands how important this is, that they still have a chance, and I think they'll come away with the win. So
yeah, I was going to say, Pat, how many times does Dallas have to get torn apart before they get stronger? They're 0-5.
No, look, I hear you, but I don't think Nola is going to be. I think they're a 5-win season team at the end of the season, and not much more. I don't think that they've got some morale. They saved it last week. I think they're 1 or 2 away from players starting to pack it in one by one, and the team losing a little bit of momentum. It's tough to be where you are at this moment and look around the league. The league seems to be stratifying quite a bit, I guess, more than in years past.
I think for Dallas, 2023 is already on their radar. New Orleans need to win to keep 2022, a hope or just some relevance. So more desperate, I'll go for New Orleans here. All right, Sunday, 2 games Sunday. We've got San Diego all the way over in New York. Hoboken, just quickly, how good was that Hoboken game? People playing tennis in the background in their apartments, just having parties on the balcony, watching it. It's the most New York thing I think I've ever seen, and it was in New Jersey. But people are critical of that. I loved it. I thought that was a great character building kind of thing, like effort, F the pre-stadiums and all that stuff. That's New York. That's gritty. I loved it.
That was great, wasn't it? The only problem is you couldn't drink in there. So knowing how resourceful they are, I would love just to do a segment on concealment of alcohol into a high school stadium, because I can imagine there's going to be some really unique ways of bringing in booze to rugby game.
Pat could help us out with that from experience from when he was in high school.
If you can shave it, you can tape liquor to it. That's all I'm saying, So you can make that happen. But look.
Why do you have to shave it?
Well, you don't want to tape it without shaving it. I'm just that's a rookie mistake, James. Look, choking in Hoboken should be the new theme for New York. I don't know. These guys cannot get a home field advantage to save their lives. They had a sold-out home crowd rooting for them. They just can't make it happen at home. I don't know what's going on in New York, but I'm going with San Diego. The battle of the Pryor brothers. I'm gonna go with Dan and the San Diego Legion in this one. I think they've got better firepower, especially at 10 and 12 or 10 and 15, and I think they're pretty good.
Yeah, tough. I agree with some of that, but I just don't think they drop two at home. So I'm going to have to go with the home side. So.
Yeah, home field advantage. Maybe I should go to Travis Island. I only lost one game there in 3 years playing for Nyack. So there you go. There's the New York home field advantage. Or maybe
it'd be a nicer pitch, and you'd have probably a greater drink up. You'd probably just how many you don't sacrifice that many fans, I guess. Hoboken doesn't seem to be that big of a venue.
I'm sure the AC want nothing to do with that, just because it's the AC. But there's a lot of space up there. You could purpose fit that facility to put in a stand and make that pretty. You probably get 7,000 to 9,000 people there if you did it the right way. It's been a while since I've been there, so I don't know what it looks like now. But back in my day, as we're talking over NEIE, you could probably fit that out for a stadium. But I'll go New York as well. I can't really lose another one at home, especially those New York fans are probably the most fickle sports fans in the world. If they lose to even the guy playing tennis in the background, he won't schedule another tennis match during a rugby New York game. He'll be done. All right, last one. Utah, LA. It's a Western Conference rematch, and these guys are the opposite end of the table this year. They're just thanking their lucky stars Dallas actually played this year, or they'd be at the very bottom.
I'll go first. I'm going to pick the Warriors. I think they're the better team, and I don't know who's lining up at fly half, but if it's a Renier, I like the Warriors' chances a little bit better. I think that they have a lot to play for. They need to get a win here, and I just think that they're a better team than the Giltinis and what we've seen so far this season.
It's hard to bet against the Giltinis, but I just think there's a lot of motivation there to going back to the place, where it all ended last year. So for me, I think I'm gonna pick Utah in this one.
They looked a lot better, didn't they? And albeit against Dallas, but they looked a lot better. They looked kind of like that Utah that we saw last year that was playing that exciting, good rugby. So, man, who starts at 10 for LA, Pat?
I think it might be you. I don't know. I heard he pulled up a little sore and limp the next morning. So
you brought up Harry Bennett. I'd be on the phone to Harry Bennett. He did a good job last year in New York. I don't think he's as far removed. You
might by the end of the season. When does the UCLA 15 season's wrapping up pretty soon? You might see Bennett in a Giltini's jersey by the end of the thing.
Hey, what about James and I have a mutual friend who's out in that area. What about Hobbsy, Michael Hobbs?
I mean, wasn't he going to try and come back for the Gilgronis last year?
Yeah, he said he did one rumor. Got halfway through it and pulled the pin, which actually sounds exactly what I would do as well.
You couldn't bring him on to close. So, nah, he's doing it.
Could he use a couple F-45 franchises just to put in his back pocket?
Hey,
this F-45.
The spokesperson for F-45. You seen that guy? He's ripped. Let's get him out there.
Yeah, get him out there.
Yeah, big following on Instagram too. I'm sure that contributes to your play. I'll go LA at home just because they're at home and just because it's LA.
But does home matter? This year, home field advantage has meant nothing.
It really hasn't, has it?
It hasn't. The 14 and 15, I think it is. Is that right? Something like that. But there's
29 matches and it's almost split 50-50.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's happening?
Well,
if anyone should have a home field advantage, it's Utah because they have the best home field and the best crowd.
Yep.
But I mean, home field.
Let me ask you guys this: we've been doing this pick'em thing now, week 5, and we haven't been keeping track.
I'm winning for sure. Yeah.
I was going to say, who do we think's winning at this point?
Definitely
me. I've been mirroring my picks on Super Brew, and I had a good run, but on the weekend I was terrible. So probably not me.
So should we make there's the bet on who wins, but then should we bet about who's right about who wins? Like, we should just keep amping this up. We'll figure it out. Soon enough, we'll tabulate. I'll take it on myself, and we'll find out who's winning sooner or later.
Right. I love it. You look like you're wearing a Giltini sweatshirt on. Oh, now it's gone. I was going to say, the logo fit perfect. I was like, good for you, Pat.
I'll take one if anybody wants to send one here.
I want some Giltinis for the show. Can we get some Giltinis? We do a live testing of the Giltinis.
I think we do. Next time they play Austin, we should reach out and see if we can get a Gilgroni and a Giltini on the show.
I think that's a great. And you know what? There's actually alcohol from all around the league, so we should preview the alcohol matchup in the weekend and go head to head. We've got the Scotch. I think someone's got a Scotch, a single malt.
Clonakilty. That's OG
against an IPA. Yeah, why not?
No, have a beer.
Everyone send us your booze in the mail, and we'll drink it here.
Yeah.
While we're talking.
The show. It'll be a much better show. Trust me.
Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts. Final thoughts before we get into the weekend. Patrick, lead us off.
I can't get the abs out of my eyeballs from earlier and the bleach, to be fair. I want to live the MLR lifestyle. I want to be a 20-something winger.
Look at
I want to be one of them. That's all I can think about.
If there's ever someone who has far too many endorphins on the happy side right there, it's Mark. Look at that. He is in a really good spot right there, and I love it.
He's got facial paralysis. He looks like the Joker.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, JP, final thoughts.
Burners. I'm honestly disappointed. I thought the rugby community in the States had a lot more venom than they did. We talked it up that everybody gets on Reddit and they get deep in there, and honestly, there's nothing. And maybe it's just because everybody's just a little bit unhappy about how their season's going, or they're not unhappy enough because they don't have enough venom. But
we just got to start fake news. Maybe we got to get the non-MLR news back up and running, but just pretend it's real.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah,
I like it. All right, boys. Appreciate both of you. As always, another great show. Enjoy the rugby this weekend, and hopefully, I don't know when we're going to be back together again. The travel schedules are insane, but we're going to keep rolling. We'll roll with the punches. We'll make it work. For my man, Pat Clifton, James Patterson, our producer, director, social media manager, and executive to the regional manager, Ryan Ginty, I'm Dan Power. This has been The Point Taken.